Rapid fire to start things off with. Hardest part about leaving the States.
Friends and family, leaving them behind.
Hardest part of coming back to Thailand.
Heat and humidity.
What was the easiest part about leaving the States? Ooh, twist.
This part.
I know.
Okay, go.
The price point.
The price point.
price point.
Price of goods and services.
Yeah. What was the easiest part about coming back to Thailand?
Our home.
Our house, yeah. And with that, we thought we'd give you a tour of our home. We love the house that the Lord has picked out for us. We have worked hard to make sure it is as open as possible to friends and friends that have become like family coming over. Throughout the week, we are hosting Bible studies. We are hosting families over for dinner, and we are just living. We are so grateful that our home has become a hotspot where kids feel welcome gallivanting in and out. Here you'll see our art/science section. This has become a little bit of a laboratory. We learned that tadpoles are cannibals. Mudang is on display, as well as the American eagle. God bless America. We have loved the boys making this house their own with their own pieces of art throughout. Here we have a sweet potato plant that we're experimenting with. I am really hoping to be able to grow my own sweet potatoes because they can be hard to come by. Wish me luck. The house came semi-furnished, and so this is the dining room table that came with the home. What's incredible about it is that it opens up, and we've actually been able to put at least 12 people around it. It's become a family discipline to always have at least one family or friend over once a week. And that discipline has really borne fruit in terms of community, but also evangelism opportunities. The first thing people comment on when they come into our kitchen is, wow, this is not a normal Thai kitchen. There's so much counter space, which is not the norm, and it's just so big. A lot of houses here in Thailand will have the kitchen outside, but I am blessed to have mine inside. And then I was out to the garden this particular afternoon because one of our banana plants were ready to harvest. While we were out there, a fig was ready. And guys, this was so special because the freaking shrews all around us normally eat my figs before I'm able to snag one. So this was so special. This was actually the first fig that I got to eat from this tree. I shared it with Gideon because I can't help myself and I have no boundaries with that kid, and he loved it. So, what's fun about banana trees is we actually learned that they are not trees, they are herbs. So, wrap your head around that. And once they give you 1 bushel of bananas, that's it. That's the end. And you have to cut them down to make way for new banana plants. This bushel was used to make a ton of smoothies and lots of banana bread. That's it for level 1. We'll give a tour of our upstairs in the next vlogcast. Give me thumbs up, side down on how ministry has been going your first weeks back.
I'd say mostly good.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not good.
But you've said multiple times, like, I don't like this.
Yeah, because it's hard.
Okay, okay, how is ministry going well right now?
How is ministry going
This is shocking to me because for weeks it's been all not like that, but like kind of.
Not like that. What's been hard?
Yeah.
I think walking.
No, I said what's been good. Since this was so quick, since the thumbs up was so quick, what's been going so good that I haven't heard about for the last 2 months?
I mean, it's good to see men engaging in life change through Christ, and the men who come to us are the men who want to change, who want to see change, who are committed to growth. So even though it's not all rainbows and butterflies, it is inspiring to see men taking an active part in their sanctification and their growth in Christ-like maturity.
What's a win that you've experienced? You can make up names and everything, but just tell us the story.
I've seen a marriage that was rocked by infidelity go through really tough times, a lot of ups and downs, and I'm seeing the beginnings of the reconstruction of that marriage,
Mm.
stronger and better, more resilient, and yeah, healing.
That's awesome. What would you say? What would you say to a woman who is who maybe has caught her husband in infidelity, or yeah, has caught her husband at something and he's not repentant? What wisdom would you give her as she's walking, as she's, sticking with her man, doing her best? Like, what wisdom would you give her? Because you talk about the difference between, you have men in your ministry who are desperate for change. What would you say to the woman who's trying to minister to her husband who's not desperate for change?
I would have to repeat things that I've heard from my own spiritual elders in the past, that um, you're you're responsible for your own part um, in being a daughter of Christ, and so as much as it depends on you, um, be as honorable and respectful of your husband as you can, and pray for him as much as you can, and lean on God for the strength to do those things even when it's difficult. And even if he is not behaving in a way that is deserving of respect or honor, um, how you show respect and honor is about you, not about the person you're showing it to. You know, Jesus says to love your enemies, and so that's kind of like at the extreme end. I wouldn't say look at your husband as your enemy, but if we're called to love our enemies, then we should be called to love our spouses when they mess up big time. And um, doesn't mean it's black and white, but do your best to get there, um, and lean on God.
You talking, I think a lot of people would sort of bristle at this idea of being respectful and honoring to a husband, honestly, on the best of days, but especially when they are in pride and arrogance, refusing to repent from a sin. But you saying that makes me think of Romans 1, where Paul tells the Roman church, don't you see that it's the Lord's kindness that calls you to repentance? And I think we all wish that, and to some extent, it was God's wrath or righteousness, so that we could then be wrathful and righteousness in the face of sin against us. But it's so counterintuitive, it's so countercultural. It requires you to die to yourself, to be kind to your sinful spouse. The same applies to, a woman caught in infidelity. Like, it's the spouse's responsibility to still be kind to them. Mm. What would you say, looking at marriages that you've seen blow up, what were some steps they could have taken prior to the detonation to prevent it?
I think the uncomfortable exhibition of grace in your marriage is super powerful. Um, I think that um, it's it's hard to um, confess big things to your spouse when the little things are met with judgment or shame, or
Mm.
um, just not grace. So Yeah, I think just cultivating a relationship that's rich in grace is important. That way, you can work your way up to the big things. A lot of the reasons why men come to us is because um, they don't feel like they can tell their spouses, and so we cultivate a community of transparency, vulnerability, authenticity, so that they have a safe place to be fully known and to confess and see what an example of grace might look like. And then our goal is to encourage them to cultivate that in their own marriages, so that if they're not at a place where they've been able to confess to their spouse, that they can get there.
What would you say to the husband who doesn't want to confess whatever to his wife because he's afraid of her and her reaction? What would you say to him?
Mm.
Would you say, no, okay, hold off on confessing? Would you say you have to do it anyway?
We don't. I mean, we don't quote unquote make anybody do anything. I
Well, you
mean,
can't make
yeah,
anybody.
we can't, and it's not like we have any leverage on them. we just we urge them to confess to their spouses, and we speak plainly to them that of what they are doing to their spouses by making them live in a lie.
So
Yeah.
you're saying that even if he's going to be met with all of those things that you just said, he should still confess.
Yes, he should still confess, and if he is afraid, then that's a whole nother set of issues, or that is one of the root issues that needs to be worked on and addressed. If he's afraid of his spouse, then that's something that we need to work on, that he and his spouse need to work on, that potentially you know he and a counselor need to work on, and so we will seek to usher him into those settings.
What would you say to a couple who's just starting out in their marriage? How would you advise them in going about building that culture of vulnerability and transparency, a marriage full of grace and truth?
There's a lot of family of origin wrapped up in that. If left alone, you will fall into your default rhythms of family. And when I think people who are getting married don't realize how much of their family of origin is ingrained in their psyche, in their mentality. It doesn't really come out until you're back in a domestic situation with a family member. So if you go on family vacations with your family of origin and you observe what's happening, you might realize, like, oh, when I'm back with my family, things come out that don't normally come out when I'm not, right? So my advice to newer married couples would be to examine that. Don't let yourself slide into your default methods of relating, necessarily, because some of them are good
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are not so good or not so healthy. So there's intentionality that needs to be brought in, to actively um, be aware of and address how you relate to your spouse, what's healthy, what's not, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what works for you and doesn't work for you. Because, you know, like Amanda and I grew up very different. And so we communicate very different, and we, you know, receive
Give.
and give. I don't know what you call that. We communicate out differently, and we perceive communication coming in differently. So, just yeah, that's what I would say, is to work on that. yeah, just continuing to be active in your walk with the Lord. And I think through those methods, you can start to cultivate that uh, relationship of grace.
I think also something that's been helpful for us is that there are no secrets ever.
Mhm.
And we confess little things to each other. Like, I think people would hear what we confess to each other and be like, that's not a big deal. But it's kind of like practice for us where I usually initiate. You've never asked me, but like, I'll say,
Yeah.
"Hey, is there anything you need to confess?" Or so, and or I'll initiate and share something that happened. And like 9 times out of 10, when I confess something, Nick's like, "Okay." Like this week at field hockey. Remember when I play field hockey now. I joined this field hockey league so that I could meet more expats who speak English and hopefully potentially one day share the gospel with some of them. And so, but it's a co-ed league and I'm so like not uncomfortable. I am uncomfortable because I don't hang out with guys a lot. I don't hang out with guys a lot without Nick there. Like my friends have husbands or whatever, but like I'm just never solo with a bunch of guys and girls. Well, this guy walked by and touched my shoulder, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, nobody!" Because guys don't touch me besides this one, and so I was so uncomfortable because I'm a freak and weird, and I'm like driving home, stressed out of my mind because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to tell Nick that this guy touched my shoulder and he's going to be like, you have to quit field hockey," which was what I was going to be so upset about because I'm actually like making connections with people. Like I'm getting lunch today with a girl from field hockey and I'm really excited to hear more about her like spiritual journey. Anyway, so I'm like freaking out in my head. Nick's going to make me quit. And then I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't tell him. Maybe I'll just like keep it to myself. It wasn't a big deal. I'm not interested in this guy. Just stop making it weird, Amanda. And then, like, as soon as I said, well, maybe I shouldn't tell him, that's when I knew I'm going to tell him. And I did. And you were like, okay, can you please go to bed now? You're like, we're not interested at all. But it's a good habit. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think oversharing is better than undersharing. Uh, and also, how do you cultivate a relationship of grace or a marriage with grace? I think
Mm.
like you just flat out stated that, you know? I mean, you were advised by your pastor before we were married that, you know, don't get married unless you can imagine your spouse committing the worst sin against you and imagine yourself forgiving them for it. And so when you go into a marriage with that mentality, I think it colors things a little bit and it shapes things a little bit. And if you're already married, you know, try it on for size, see if you can do that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then that I think changes your posture a little bit. And then doing those baby confessions or maybe even those silly
Mm.
confessions, I think everybody I've talked to would agree that those silly confessions are just as hard to confess as the
Mm-hmm.
big ones in that,
Mm-hmm.
but just from a different in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, oh, this is too silly, I would be embarrassed to confess this. But by going forward and doing that, you're not only helping yourself to practice or exercise uh, confessing, right, with the small stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also giving your spouse the opportunity to meet you with grace and being intentional in those. And if they don't respond well to it, kind of explaining to them like how
Mm-hmm.
you would like them to
Mm-hmm.
respond, right? Because I mean, I don't dismiss you when you confess those silly
No,
things
you
to
don't.
me. I say thank you, and you know, I tell you, you know, I might tell you that's not a big deal to me,
Yeah.
but I
You
don't,
might
I do,
chuckle because your family of origin doesn't do well with serious
yeah,
communication.
but I do try to take it seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that grows that relationship of grace.
Yeah. I think it also confessing the little things. kind of scare, at least for me, it kind of scares me of like, I never want to have to confess a big thing,
Yeah, that's
you
actually I
know?
meant to say that too. Yeah. Like it kind yeah, it's kind of a check on yourself like, "Oh, I don't like confessing this small thing. I definitely don't want to do
Anything
anything
bigger.
bigger
Yeah.
or make room for anything bigger to
Yeah.
happen," right? Like it keeps you on your guard to hold those boundaries a little bit more.
Okay, last question about this, and then we're going to shift away and wrap up. What do you think? I think we all know what you're going to say to this, but what do you think there's any marriage? How do I phrase this? Like, do you think a marriage that's been rocked by infidelity is dead and gone and irreconcilable?
No, not at all. As you know, as I was saying, I'm seeing one reform now, and I think that a lot of times a marriage that's rocked by infidelity, um, had areas where it could be better beforehand, and I think that coming through that season, I have hope and faith in God that He can rebuild that marriage even stronger and even better on the other side. Because there are things that needed to have attention,
Mm-hmm.
and this highlighted it and forced the issue to really work on things in the marriage. And so, I've seen that. I'm seeing that now, and yeah, I have hope for any marriage where the two parties are working together, and even if only one party's um, committed to it, then keep praying for the other party. And those I've seen marriages. We know people from years ago who only one of the spouses was committed to the marriage, and they just faithfully prayed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they prayed like it depended on God because there was nothing they could do.
Mm-hmm.
And the other spouse did come back around and repent and recommit to the marriage. Um, so I think that's totally possible and should be striven for.
It's a nice new word. Okay, so to recap, confess everything, even the little things. Be prepared to receive confessions from your spouse with grace and truth. Um, Begin like developing that transparent culture within your marriage, even if that means letting go of some of your family of origin culture, which we know about letting go of culture now that we live in a different culture. It is possible. It's difficult, but it is possible to adapt to new cultures. And then no marriage is beyond reconciliation, I believe. I mean, because to your point, if only one party is committed, like that is the story of God in the Bible. Like only the Lord was committed to Israel, and the Lord kept seeking after them. And like Jesus at times is the only one committed to his marriage to the church. Like sometimes, we see churches that are just willfully, I would say, cheating on Jesus, and Jesus stays faithful. And so I think there's so much hope for the spouse who is the only one who's in it right now. Like they're in good company because that's how the Lord operated. Is there anything you would add?
No, sounds great. You're so good at talking.